Welcome to 17 Strong. Victories don't come by accident. Here's your host, Steve Teixeira.
Thanks, Andy. Welcome to another 17 Strong podcast. I'm your host, Steve Teixeira, along with my beautiful wife, Holly. Hi, babe.
Hi, how are you?
Well, I'm doing well, but I thought I might be replaced.
Yeah, I know, it's so good to have you back.
Yeah.
I'm glad to have you.
You did a great job.
Thanks.
And it was emotional. We love the
Yes.
Millers, and you did a really good job. But today we have another emotional podcast, but we're honored with the privilege and pleasure of Dr. Rob Chatterton and his wife Megan. So
Yay,
welcome
thanks
to both
for
of
being here.
Thank you.
for having
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. This is awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of wanted to set up this how we met, like
Sure.
just a little scene and how we met, because I feel like I don't even know if you know this. So I might have told you, but I do want to tell everybody on the podcast that Daniell and I worked for you, just in case people didn't know that. But first and foremost, we worked together. Daniell and I worked together, and we worked for Dr. Burnside, who is in Napomo. He sold the practice to Rob, and all I knew about Rob before is that he was from you were from San Diego. I knew that he was younger than I was. I knew that his wife was a hygienist and that he was a Mormon. And I thought, oh gosh, is this going to be good or is this going to be bad? I don't even know. So I was like, okay, in the dental world, we're like, oh gosh, the wife's coming to work for the
Sure.
office. You never know how that's going to go. And so at the beginning, I was thinking, I'm going to work for somebody that's a lot younger than I am. So this is weird too.
I remember those conversations.
Conversations
Coming
with me and
home at
Daniell?
night,
Yeah, sure. You're
never had a boss younger than me,
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm not sure I like this at all. Like, it's so strange. And anyway, I just want to go on record to say that, Rob, you're probably the best, most awesome boss I've ever worked for. So
Yeah,
I am
thank you.
very, very thankful.
And
for
she did say that off the record many times.
many
Oh,
times,
thanks.
but
Yeah.
my favorite boss ever. So
thank you.
And you're a darn good dentist, too.
Oh,
absolutely. But I do want to say something about that too, is that it was all about family, and that was so important to me. But I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know that going into it.
Sure.
So I felt super honored to be a part of your team, a part of your staff. And me and Daniell would say that a lot, and Megan did work. She was a hygienist. She worked with us, and it went so smooth. So wasn't it? Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
We had such a
Yeah.
great little team in that. It was a small little office, but we loved it in Napomo and Wilson Drive or something like that. Yeah, right
North
upstairs.
Wilson,
Yeah, I know. I love that place. So anyway, Rob, just tell us a little bit about you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, I'm one of those non-doctors. I'm a dentist.
Yeah, you have some letters after your name.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But what we deal in is pretty simple and not life-threatening for the most
Right.
part, which is great. But So Megan and I met when I was in dental school, and she was already a practicing hygienist, and so I knew I wanted to come to California. I'm originally from Boise, Idaho, but I just love the ocean and knew I wanted to
And you're a
come.
surfer.
Yeah.
Surfer, yeah.
There's no
exactly.
surfing in Idaho.
Yeah, no surf. Yeah,
Unless it's a wakeboard in the lake.
Exactly, yeah. So anyway, we kind of stumbled upon this area and just fell in love with it. Megan's from California and from Modesto, and very different part of California, but so
Modesto.
Yes, that's true.
so we came here, and so in 2010 I bought that practice, and I don't think it's funny hearing this now from you, because I don't think I appreciated at the time at all, like, what that perspective was like from your guys' perspective.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Where it's like you've been working for this dentist for years. I mean, Daniell was there 7 or 8 years, 10 years, and you were there
a couple.
5 or
I was
6.
only there a couple of years. I think 2 or 3 years. But it's just different when you're like, they're inheriting the staff. I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah,
sure,
totally.
Sure. If you don't gel, because as dentistry, you work really close to your boss every single day,
especially as assistants and dentists.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
And so I don't think I appreciated at the time how scary or unknown or that transition was for you guys.
Sure.
But anyway, I came in, and it was I don't know if you remember, but it was literally an overnight takeover. I mean, I remember Brooks worked on a Monday. I can remember it was November 15th, 2010. He worked on a Monday. I came in that day. The money was wired at 6 p.m. We all stuffed envelopes and sent letters out to patients right away. And then I literally started on Tuesday the next day.
Wow.
And it was like that. And Brooks went from 25 years of owning and running the practice to retired, you know, just literally. And I think he came in 3 or 4 times to kind of finish up a few cases or whatever, but otherwise it was us and that was it. And not only was I young or younger or whatever, but I was also a pretty brand new dentist. I had only been a dentist for like a year and a half or whatever down at Carlsbad. And so working for somebody else. So it was it was totally new. You know?
Right.
But
so it's new also too that you're a dentist and that business owner.
Absolutely.
And now you have the staff.
Like all those things. Yeah. And
they're all girls.
Yeah. And dental school is cramming in dental stuff in 4 years. They don't teach you a thing about being a boss, about business, nothing. Yeah. Exactly. Running a business. I mean, you're learning profit and loss statements and all of this stuff from your accountant. I'm like, literally, tell me this like you're telling a 5-year-old, please. Because I need to.
Thank God you had Daniell. Because
Daniell knew everybody and everything in that town, and everybody knew Daniell, and thank goodness you guys all stuck with me, and because that was huge, because the patients loved you guys, and I think to come in and have these familiar faces.
Sure.
So here's a funny little anecdote or whatever, just in thinking about this. So I had come up before and met most of the staff, but for some reason you weren't there. I didn't meet you until day one. Right. And I just think that I can't remember what it was. There was something
because I was a part-time worker. That's why.
Yeah, that's probably the part-time maybe worker. I came on a day that you weren't there.
I weren't there. Yeah, because I think I worked from like 8 to 1, and then I left during while you guys went to lunch. I would sometimes go to lunch, and then I would go
and take off.
Yeah, I'd take off. So that's probably why you didn't meet me.
Yeah, and I remember Brooks going through everybody, and you're kind of trying to get a feel for everyone and whatever. And I remember I knew you existed because I knew on
paper.
There's another RDA, Holly or whatever, and but I hadn't met you, and I remember coming in the first day and meeting you and talking to you and everything, and I was like, how did she's like a huge asset to this practice. Like, why did nobody mention just your personality and how bubbly and everything?
See, there it goes. There it is. Did you hear that?
Bubbly.
That's always what I get. That's always what I get since I've been.
Well, I hope that's
her number one adjective.
Yeah, I hope
the
that's
number one adjective. Exactly.
But it was just, Brooks had talked to me about Daniell and how she knew everybody and all these things. And you're going through and like, what's everybody's responsibilities and what does everybody do and whatever.
You're like, and this girl, she's just.
and it wasn't like, and Brooks didn't say anything. Obviously nothing bad, but it was just like, oh my gosh, like she's amazing, and like it was just nice. It was awesome. So I just knew, from the start, I think we all gelled really well. And honestly, when I think back, those are such fond memories, and I honestly miss those days. There's times where I honestly miss them, and
I know, because we would do a lot of fun things together, and it was good. It was good.
It was just
super
a good time.
Fun. So now tell me about because you went to Monterey. Yeah, tell me a little bit about that. Because
so in the end, I mean, as much as I love that practice and everything, and you kind of alluded to this or mentioned just a minute ago that I hope it came across pretty quick to all of you and the staff that its family was number one and first, and I understood that, and my thought and motto was always like, you do whatever is best for you and your family over anything else. Like, I understand that this is important and it's our practice and whatever, but your family always, supersedes that and whatever. So anything, I hope, and anytime you guys had anything come up or whatever, I hope that it came across that way. And I always tried to prioritize it that way. So when that came to me, I did the same thing. And basically, so, I mean, I went on a CE course and met, some dentists on this course up in the Bay Area. And that led to one of them contacting me. They were in a group practice in Monterey, and he and I kind of became friends. And then they had a partner retiring, and he knew I was in a solo practice.
Oh, gotcha.
And he had done that for years, 15 or 20 years in Fresno. And he was like, I know the struggles of a solo practice, and it is it is tough. It's a
Right.
grind. I mean, just dentistry is an expensive business to run. When you run it by yourself, you assume all of that,
Sure.
financial and all of that responsibility we're talking about
Yeah.
alone.
And again, you didn't learn that in school. So you're like,
Totally.
I don't know
Yeah,
that I
and
like
it's
that part.
literally, it's sink or
wanna
swim.
do,
I mean, you're
I
kicked
want to
in
do
and-
dentistry. That's what I signed up
Yeah,
for, not to
exactly.
be the boss and all the, it's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah.
It
So
is.
so they had a partner of 30 years retiring, and they reached out to me. And at first my answer was like, "Oh, thanks. I'm flattered, but no thanks."
No. Yeah.
And then I sat on it I literally sat on it for like a month. And then I was like, maybe I should just hear what they have to say. I talked to
Sure.
them again, and they were like, let's talk. So they brought us up there. They showed us the practice and everything. And then they, everybody kind of dug deeper, and they started sharing, like financial potential and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And at that point,
Sound great.
yeah, and it just led me down a path that was like I couldn't unlearn that
Right.
information, and here was this opportunity. And so
And
anyway,
it's a beautiful area.
and it's a beautiful.
I
It's
was
still
born
a
and
beautiful
raised
area.
in Salinas. So
Yeah.
Monterey's a hop, skip, and a jump.
Right.
So yeah. So
Yeah.
you were there for about how long?
About a year and a half, and it was kind of time to either buy into the group practice or decide what's next. And they were awesome. I mean, it was 6 of us under one roof, ranging from 35 years old to probably 60 something years old, nearing retirement. The group had existed since the early 70s.
Wow. So it was established.
right in town. Yeah, good building, everything. So it was great. But we in no time. I mean,
Our heart wasn't there. It was here.
Yeah.
We came back here like
Every
almost
weekend.
every weekend to
Yeah.
visit
We just
friends and
did,
family.
yeah.
But you're learning. Like you were
Yeah.
newly married. You had Claire. You
we
had,
had, Claire was only 2 years old when we moved there. She was pregnant with Cameron,
okay.
who was born there in Monterey 2
Okay.
years, after Claire. So, this is all 2015. And, anyway, we quickly learned. I remember being there about 6 months and saying to Megan, like, I think I just want to go back. Like,
Yeah, I
I just
know.
miss that area. Like, I'm not really interested in a solo practice again. I don't want to go buy something down there. We don't need to be hasty about it. We've got a good thing going here, and we can look for opportunities.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of where I started putting out feelers and whatever, and then the opportunity at the Chumash tribe opened up. I knew
So
somebody.
you were a dentist there
Correct.
for
yeah.
quite some time.
3.5 years until COVID.
Okay.
Yeah. Up until
All right.
COVID. Yeah.
So then let's stop there.
Yeah.
Let's go to Megan. So Megan, tell me about how long you and Rob have been married. Obviously, he told us that you guys met in school, and then tell me a little bit about your kids.
Okay, we've been married 11 years.
Yeah.
2009. We like you said, met when he was in his last year of dental school,
Okay.
and we have.
So were the
3 kids.
hygienists, was the class right next to the dental?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
I went,
Yeah. Good question.
Was
I know.
it?
no, I went to hygiene school in Connecticut, and then I moved to DC to work, which he was in Richmond, and we were just his friends and we were
They
just
just knew each
traveling
other.
back and
Yeah.
forth,
Gotcha.
mutual friends.
Yeah.
And I think we really hit it off though at a baseball game.
Ooh.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you
Orioles.
go.
Or I
Baltimore,
wasn't even. We were just
Oh,
talking.
Camden Yard.
Camden
Oh,
Yard. Yeah. uh-huh,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
And we totally hit it off there.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's where I'm
great.
like,
Yeah.
we're
This
gonna have
is
to
good.
reconnect again.
This
And
is gonna be
summer was
good.
starting. We dated all summer.
Yeah.
And
The rest is history.
Yeah.
The rest
Yeah,
is really
yeah,
history.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
3
Sounds like a
kids.
Hallmark movie.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
So we have Claire, who's 7,
Okay.
Cameron's 5, and Kate's 3.
Okay.
So, and they're all about to have birthdays in April, May, and June.
Awesome. Awesome.
Great kids.
And I remember Claire
Mhm.
very vividly because you guys had gotten pregnant with Claire when I had worked there.
Yep.
But I do remember when we did a book read and she was, and I
Oh,
said,
yeah.
I spotted her little face out and I was like, who's your daddy? And she's like, she kind of looked at me strange at the beginning and then she's like, his name's Rob. And I said, what's your last name? Chatterton. I said, I worked for your dad. And she was so like glowing. I
Yeah.
was like, I love it. It was so cool.
This
and
is
I
at
could
Ocean
just
View,
tell.
Elementary. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Ocean View.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. That was the cutest thing ever. So anyway, 3 kids. They're very young. And yeah. Okay. So, and you guys both knew Ryan.
Yeah.
Ryan was in part of the practice, obviously.
Yep.
Yeah. We did anything in particular that kind of maybe a highlight that either of you might have.
Yeah, my first thoughts. First of all, I remember, again, back to meeting you, and we were talking about this earlier, but there was the two pictures in our sterilization room
Yep,
of your
we
boys.
all had pictures.
Aaron,
I
Ryan,
had
yeah.
a little wall.
Everyone had their
little wall,
which was really cool. And so I remember you telling me about them. And then, I can specifically remember meeting Ryan and him coming in as a patient. And
Right.
my first thought was just like, he was so mature for his age and so outgoing and friendly. And then I was like, he is, and I'd met you, Steve, at this time, and I was just like, he is their kid for sure. Just
right.
absolutely. But I was just so impressed with how polished he was and just respectful, and I just enjoyed.
Yeah.
Anytime he was on the schedule, I looked forward to it because he was just like such a positive, upbeat kid. And I remember in my mind just thinking like, this is the kind of kid you hope to have. I mean, this is like sincerely just, somebody that can converse with adults, but is integrated with his own, his own cohort, and just a good all around kid.
Such a one of a kind.
Absolutely,
yeah. So that's interesting. So thank you for saying that, because that makes me feel, yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to, so Ryan got diagnosed with his cancer in April of 2015.
Yeah.
So you were
that was literally the month we moved to Monterey. And then Cameron was born. Cameron was born on my first day of official work. I literally sold the practice the day before to Dr. Young. I left in the afternoon, drove to Monterey,
and worked.
Was about to work the next morning. She woke up at 5 a.m, had a contraction.
See, it was the drive.
Yeah. I mean, had I been one day later, I would have missed his birth. It was crazy.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. And so when did you find out about Ryan then? Or how did you find out?
Gosh, that's a great question. I know I found out early. My guess is it had to be from Daniell.
Yeah.
I would think that Daniell had texted me.
Yeah.
And we all kept communication,
always
through this. Yeah. Which is even when I was in Monterey and everything. Yeah. And so, I'm sure Daniell would have been the one to tell me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that was April 2015.
Yeah.
Then Daniell gets diagnosed on August, and it was 2016.
Okay. Yeah.
How did you? I know exactly where I was at.
Really?
I know everything about that, because we were taking Ryan back to school. It was August 17th, and she called me, and she had said, I don't think it's good. I have to go back.
Yeah.
And why would they call me back? Like, I just was there in the morning. Do you remember this conversation?
Yep.
So anyway, I always hesitated to tell Ryan because, but then I knew I needed to.
Yeah.
But he was actually at school feeling great,
Okay.
So that was his time to go back to college in the house. I remember like outside the house talking to Montisa and
so was this
getting the
kind of
news.
In between his two diagnoses?
This was right before he got diagnosed with leukemia.
Right
with
before.
leukemia. Okay, the
right
second.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was 2 weeks, 3 weeks later.
Oh gosh,
he got diagnosed with leukemia.
Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly right. But he was there. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy. I hadn't thought about it. So that's 2016.
Yeah.
And then we have the big blow that was you got diagnosed.
Yeah.
And I know it was 2020. I don't know the
Yeah.
month it was.
It was tax day, April 15th.
April 15th.
Yeah. Another reason to dislike that day.
To dread that day.
To dread that day.
Wow.
Yeah. And Ryan's was April 19th.
So we're close. Yeah, almost
but his
to
was
the day.
2015. Yours was 2020.
So 5 years.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Interesting. Walk me through that whole process of symptoms and how that transpired.
Yeah. So this is just a year ago. So I was in the middle of transitioning. I had come back, was working as a dentist at the Chumash tribe.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that I knew that was working there, Dr. Troy Slade, he had gone on to Phoenix and left the tribe, and then I took his job as the dental director there. So I'm working as the dental director at the tribe, commuting from AG down to Santa Ynez every day, 50 miles. Awesome job. I loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, I didn't even mind the commute. I did
Yep.
it for 3, plus years or whatever. And beautiful drive and just, anything. I loved it. But as you know, Dr. Beck, Trevor Beck, who's
Mhm.
partner with Randy Voss in
Yes.
the Village in AG. Trevor and I met day one of dental school
Yep.
back in Virginia,
Mhm.
15 plus, 17 years ago.
Yeah.
We found this area together,
Mm.
came out here together, everything. And so at this point, Randy Voss, Trevor's partner of 13 years, was talking retirement, and
Mhm.
and we had started talking about me replacing him and buying his half out
Sure.
and becoming partners with my friend Trevor.
Right.
So that was the plan.
Yep.
So that was, in fact, we had it all arranged and set up, and it was going to
Mhm.
happen on April 1 was the transition date and everything. And I was coming back, to AG, and it was
It
going to be
was
awesome.
perfect. It was
Yeah, it was a fairy
perfect.
tale, honestly.
Yes, seriously.
Yeah. And as much as I hated leaving the tribe, and they were awesome to me and everything, but it was one of those situations where when you explained it to anybody, they're just like, you've got to do this. I mean, this is your
Mhm.
best friend. It's a great
Right.
practice, like
It's
everything.
yes.
Yeah. So anyway, that was the plan. And then, COVID hits March, 15,
Because that's
16.
March. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Dentistry is literally, as well as so many other industries, is brought to a screeching halt.
Right.
So we're trying to figure this out at the tribe. They're trying to figure this out at
Yeah.
with Voss and Beck, and we're all just trying to navigate this crazy new world that we're
Mhm.
in. And so long story short, or whatever, to sum it up, but basically COVID pushed off our transition,
Yep.
and it came to the point where the banks were still willing to loan, and that was no problem and
Mhm.
everything, but it was just like I'm coming into nothing right now. I mean, there's literally
Right.
no
Nothing.
work.
No work. Yeah.
So the plan was, luckily Megan and I are frugal and savers, and I had a cushion of like,
Sure.
I always keep, we always like to keep 2 to 3 months of
Yeah.
unexpected
Which
of
you should.
expenses. Yeah.
Yes.
And we were just like,
absolutely.
we're okay. And we all kind of thought that would be, the early days of
Oh,
COVID, it was
yeah.
like 2 weeks
2
lockdown,
weeks.
1
That's
month
it.
Yeah.
lockdown.
That's all we
whatever.
thought.
That's what everybody thought.
I did.
Here we
I
are a
was.
year
Yeah.
later. It's like, oh my
Yes.
gosh. Yeah. So we thought, okay, I remember having a discussion with Randy, and Randy was like, are you okay for a couple months? And I was like, absolutely. And Randy is a saint, and
Oh, he
Randy
is.
Voss.
So
And he was like,
nice.
I just can't in good conscience sell you nothing right now. So let Trevor and I weather this storm. Let us get the practice back up and
Okay.
going, and let's talk about doing this like June 1 or July 1. So that was the plan. I can remember. So my last day at the tribe was beginning of April. I remember in my exit interview with our HR person, I remember that's when I first was like, my legs. I remember specifically sitting in that interview and having to scratch my legs, and I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, things. My skin was getting itchy, and it was so bizarre. And I remember coming home and talking to Megan. I'm like, did you switch laundry detergent? Like something, like my skin is itchy. Well, then, so I'm done at the tribe, and I've got this downtime at home, and suddenly my skin starts turning yellow, and I start feeling sick. I have jaundice. I'm full blown jaundice. My
And that
eyes are
happened
turning
quick?
yellow. This
Mhm.
happened over about a 2-week period. I mean, pretty quick. And
And the
and
itchy went away?
no,
No.
the itchy was
Getting
getting
worse.
bad. I mean, to the
Worse.
point where it was like it was keeping me up at night. Like I would
Oh.
just wanted to scratch my skin all night long, and it was just crazy. So finally, after about a week and a half of trying to kind of figure that out, what's going on, I reached out to my doctor, and that led to me, him getting blood work done, which led to a gastroenterologist referral. And keep in mind, again, this is early. This is like 2 weeks into COVID, so hospital. I mean,
Oh.
Everything
So
shut
now-
down.
everything
I
is
mean,
shut down. Yeah,
Yeah.
which kind of worked out. It worked out that a lot of these guys had time. So this all happened. I remember. So I talked to my doctor like on a Thursday. I got blood work done on a Friday, and that led to a gastroenterologist referral. I got more blood work done on Monday morning.
Mm.
Tuesday, an ultrasound in the morning, which right after looking at that, they were like, we're bringing you right back this afternoon for an MRI. So this is all,
Boom, boom,
Friday, yeah, Monday,
Yeah.
Tuesday, all leading up to April
Wow.
15th. Wednesday is April 15th. And after that MRI, the gastroenterologist called me, and he was like, yeah, we're seeing something. And one of my a partner gastroenterologist does endoscopy with ultrasound and do pinch biopsy. We want to get you in tomorrow. So I go to Sierra Vista Hospital in SLO. Right away, they put me under. They do this, and in my mind the whole time, cancer has not even crossed my mind.
Sure.
I mean,
You're a
hasn't
young
even entered
guy.
it. Yeah, I'm
you're
40.
healthy. You're a surfer.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
totally. And I was thinking in my mind, I was like, I guarantee I've got like a gallstone, something blocking my bile duct that's leading to this buildup of of bilirubin jaundice, and that's what's happening, and so they haven't mentioned that either. No doctor has said the
so
C word.
The C
Yeah,
word was not in the okay.
no, and in hindsight, I look back and I'm like, they knew for sure, and I don't blame them. But it's just like
They
you
wanted
got
to
to
be
get to that point of a biopsy
Right.
and
Correct.
confirmation before
and
you
it was
want
the
to
same
throw
thing
that.
with Ryan.
Totally, and I'm sure you guys can in hindsight
Yeah.
look back and be like, gosh, those, and you kind of feel almost bad for them because they're sitting
Yeah.
there having these conversations with you, and in their mind, there's like this poor guy.
Well, and we knew with
Yeah.
Ryan right away because the orthopedic surgeon that we went to said, "I'm calling, some people. You're going to hear from me later
No,
today."
he used
Yeah.
the word like world renowned.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah,
was
yeah,
like-
and
But
you're like,
we
yeah,
knew something wasn't
Yeah.
good at that point.
that it was
because you-
bigger. It wasn't
Yeah.
normal. Yeah,
No.
and it was nothing that they could handle locally. It was
sure.
this
That
was,
it had to be out of the area. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to go somewhere big.
and he had told us. He says you'll be in Stanford or UCLA by this weekend.
Yep. Yeah.
So-
Gosh, I know. And it's such a whirlwind. It's
It
crazy.
is.
Yeah.
It's a whirlwind.
So I go in, get this, they do this biopsy and I wake up and I'm fine. And I remember, Megan couldn't come with me, it's, this is again, COVID. So I leave the hospital and they were like, oh, the doctor who did the biopsy will call you, with the results or whatever. And they did tell me, they were like, he was able to place, a stent. I knew whatever was in there was blocking my bile duct. Again, I'm thinking like, I bet I've got a gallstone and I bet I've got to get my gallbladder removed. And in my mind, I'm kind of like, oh, what a pain, or whatever. Like,
Oh,
but I'm like, oh, I've got
gosh.
downtime anyway, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. And so they said to me, they placed a stent in there to open that bile duct up. You're going to feel better in no time.
Oh.
And I was feeling really sick because of the whole jaundice thing.
Sure.
It just makes you, you're literally just kind of being poisoned
Right.
by your own body. And it just, it had laid me up, for about a week where I was just like, man, I had no energy. I was just sick.
Oh yeah.
And so anyway, I'm walking out of the hospital. Megan pulls up in the van. She's got all 3 kids in there. I remember it just like it was yesterday. My phone rings and it's a number I don't know. So I answer it and it's the gastroenterologist that had just, performed this biopsy on me. And I, am right outside the doors of Sierra Vista Hospital. He says, hey, do you have your wife with you? And I said, well, she's in the car. He's like, yeah, tell her to come, So Megan comes out. We sit on this bench right in front of the hospital. I put it on speakerphone. And I remember him saying, hey, we were able to place a stent. You're going to feel better. I did a pinch biopsy of what was there. You have something there on the pancreas that's blocking the bile duct. And we're able to do a biopsy, have a pathologist come down right there and right there in the room, look at it under a slide and see what it is. And unfortunately it's malignant. And in my mind, I'm just like, I'm piecing these things together, and I'm like, I heard pancreas, I heard growth, I heard malignant.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hey, I go, are you telling me I have pancreatic cancer? And he's like, yeah, that's what I'm telling you. You need to get an oncologist now, and I just remember those words. I mean, they almost just reverberate right now in my head like an echo
totally.
chamber. I mean, it's crazy.
Mhm.
And I remember, and poor Megan, and she's sitting there kind of just like, are we really understanding all this right? And so, and you're kind of thinking, and he's like, so who do I need to send this report to? And I'm like, I mean, who has an oncologist?
Yeah.
You
Who
don't
are
have an
they?
oncologist.
Like,
yeah. And I'm like, I don't know. And I just said to him, you do, with what I have, is there anyone you recommend? I mean, I don't know what I have. And so anyway, so he made a recommendation. I'm like, well, just send it there, and let's go from there.
Go from there.
Yeah. So that's what was done. And I remember driving home and and I don't remember a lot of stuff
Yep.
from dental school, but
Oh.
but one thing I do remember is in our general pathology class, I just remember this slide and on the syllabus, that just stuck out to me still this day, that I learned years ago, and it was pancreatic cancer and survival rates. And I just remember in my mind, even back in dental school, I just remember, oh yeah, I'll associate that, because like if there's ever a cancer you don't want, it's pancreatic cancer, because it's got the worst survival rate. It's like a 5 to 10% 5-year survival rate, and it's just basically a death sentence. So anyway, I just remember
That's
that.
not what you want.
No,
to
and I
hear.
remember, I text my immediate family. Megan drove me home. I text my immediate family, my parents, siblings, and just let them know. I said, hey, it's, unfortunately, it's not good news, and I do have pancreatic cancer. And I remember talking to my brother, and just right as we were pulling into the house or right to our street, I remember that's when it just hit me, and I just broke down. It was just like, oh my gosh, like there's just no way. Like it's just crazy. Yeah.
Right.
And it just absolutely hit me, and
And I do have to say that when I found out about you, Daniell told me.
Really?
So,
yeah.
I mean, Daniell plays a pivotal role in this
Oh,
whole thing.
totally.
100%. That she was like, she's just a rock.
Yeah,
like she
absolutely.
knew that she was, she called me, and I was like, wait a minute. I don't, like, same thing. Like,
it's the shock and awe moment.
It is.
When Holly told me, I remember like, what? That it just doesn't. I mean,
and for you guys too, I mean, it just probably feels like the hits don't stop coming.
Yeah, they keep coming.
I mean?
They keep coming, and you're like, what is going on here? Like,
but it's not just us. There's so many people that are affected by this, and it's just, I think the awareness that everybody thinks you live in this bubble. I've got a healthy family. Yeah. I'm physically active. I eat well. I'm young.
Yeah.
This stuff doesn't happen to me. It doesn't happen to my kids.
Right.
And this, we create this false sense of security. Anybody, it can happen to anybody. Cancer knows no boundaries.
Exactly.
It doesn't know an age. It doesn't know a skin color. It doesn't
care about whether you're kids.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't care.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Happens to good people.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
You don't understand. That's for sure.
And you have to. I think you have to come to that realization early on. That
100%.
Just to.
You can't ask why.
Exactly.
Because you're not going to get that answer
drive
right
yourself
now.
crazy.
Drive yourself crazy. That's
exactly.
right.
And you have to just realize it is a random, no respecter of persons. It's just that it can land on anybody at any time, and it just happened to land on me. You know what I mean? And that was it.
For a while, you were thinking, "What did I do? Is it something?"
Yeah,
you always do that.
Sure.
Ryan did the same thing.
Did he really?
I mean, was it the hamstring injury I had? Was it this? Was it that? And the doctors will tell you. I'll never forget Ryan's oncologist, and it was a conversation we had early on, and he was talking about the people that are walking around with cancer that don't even know it. He goes, a lot of us just living in the Los Angeles area have lung cancer, and we're not even smokers.
Right.
But it's because the air we're breathing.
Right.
But they could live that way for years because their body is keeping it at bay.
Right.
But he was saying if we just started scanning people's lungs, a large percent are going to have spots on their lungs.
Sure.
And it's just some people's immune system can handle it.
Yeah.
Other people's can't.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they don't know. That's the smoking gun. Is what's the trigger?
What's the threshold and what's the point?
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Of
That's
when it
so
becomes a
true.
problem.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a question we had. How long has this been going on inside?
Did they have an answer?
That was recently. Yeah. And because I was just kind of out of almost morbid curiosity. You're just kind of like, how long has this been happening in my body? Like,
and I have been unaware.
Yeah. And specifically with what I have, which is what I have is called neuroendocrine carcinoma or neuroendocrine tumors, pancreatic neuroendocrine cancer. So about 60,000 people a year in the United States will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Which is not a lot.
That's a really low number.
Correct.
Right.
And then you take that 90% of those to 95% of those will be adenocarcinoma. I got the weird neuroendocrine carcinoma. So only 5 to 10% of those 60,000 with pancreatic cancer will be diagnosed with what I have. So basically your pancreas has two kinds of cells, exocrine cells and endocrine cells. And whichever cancer that affects, most of the time it's the exocrine cells, the 90-95%. For me, I fall in the 5% of the neuroendocrine carcinoma. So really rare on top of being
Just
rare.
like Ryan.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And yeah, so
that never made me feel really good. I was
yeah,
like,
so
okay, thanks for telling me it's rare, because
yeah, exactly. Like
because we had the same exact thing. Okay, because if you were to look up Ewing sarcoma,
yeah,
it would be a bone. It
correct.
was not in the bone.
Right. His
So,
was soft tissue,
Soft
right?
tissue.
Like yeah.
My dad, I think, asked me 5 times, is it in the bone? I said, no, it's
Yeah.
not in the bone. They have already, I mean, he goes, but that's not what the Google says. I go, it's the rare one.
It's the rare one,
rare
yeah.
one. I
Yeah.
mean, the rarest of the rare. I mean, I think they even gave
Well,
us
but-
200 people.
Well,
a
because
year,
they break
yeah.
it down to the genome now.
Okay, yeah.
You know, so he had small blue round cell, da 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 da.
yeah.
You know, so they get down to
the absolute nitty gritty.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what takes a long time to find, because that's what they use to
help base treatment.
the
Correct.
treatment.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Road
uh-huh.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to go to Megan really quick
Yeah.
and just ask Megan, you're there hearing the news. What is your initial reaction to this?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I wasn't even hearing it. It was just like
Yeah.
No.
going, processing it was just
It's a shock and awe moment.
complete.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And felt like a dream. And
You just a
sometimes
nightmare.
it
A
still
nightmare.
does,
Yeah.
yeah.
You want to just pinch yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and reality sets in, and you go through the motions, and it was just shock and awe.
Yeah,
It really
Yeah.
was. And you
Was
go
there a
th-
moment that it just really hit you, kind of like Rob said, that he got to that, and then it just
Yeah, you know what?
it's still probably
Those
still.
moments come at the most unexpected times.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, I can't
do.
explain it, but
I hear you.
And then at times you feel guilty for having good days and not being
Mhm.
sad and thinking about it often.
Yep.
And then there'll be times when you'll just be doing the dishes or
And it's
taking the kids somewhere, and it just hits you,
Hits you.
and you realize what's going on, and
what you're going through in
going
that
through
moment.
and the
Yeah.
reality of
Yeah.
it. And so it comes in waves, the
Yep.
emotions, and some days are good and some days are bad.
Yeah.
But
Still
But
to
I
this
do
day.
want to
Yeah.
encourage you. That
Okay.
is
It's just the way that's the
That's
new
life.
normal. Though.
It's a
That's-
new normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You learn how to cope.
You do.
exactly. I
And
went,
it-
yeah.
I remember, if I can say here, I remember that first night waking up at like 3 a.m. to Megan just bawling,
Sure.
and
That
and
was a-
and she had kind of gone down the rabbit hole. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you had started looking up
I had all the stuff
Stuff
you're not
about
supposed to do.
pancreatic
you know?
cancer.
And
So,
if if we have any listeners out there and you have a family member diagnosed or you're worried about something, the worst thing you could do is go Google it.
Absolutely.
Because
Don't Google
there
it.
is so much,
Yeah,
I don't want to use the term, but fake information, fake
Yep.
news, false information. Everybody's got
yeah,
a cure for this and a cure for
Yeah.
that. Go see your doctor.
yeah.
Yeah.
Don't turn
Don't-
to Dr. Google.
Yes.
Yeah, don't
exactly.
go to
Yeah.
WebMD. Don't do.
And I
Talk to
do
your
have to
doctors
say-
first, and
Exactly.
and
Yes,
ask them a ton of questions. Come in
Yep.
with a barrage of questions if you have to write them down.
Yep. 100%.
Whatever. But that's what they're there for, and
Yep.
and I agree 100%.
Don't look at Google.
You know,
And Steve and
it's-
I didn't. We didn't look at
You
Google.
didn't? That's good.
And I
Yeah,
know that
yeah, yeah.
Danielle that was the same way. She was like, I am going through the motions of what it is. A lot of times she didn't want to ask the questions
Yeah.
because she just wanted to go through like the
Yeah.
motions that she
Mhm.
needed to go through. And I
Yeah, and
you
sometimes
know,
you don't want the answer.
you don't want the
Well,
Yeah.
answer.
And everybody's
okay.
different. You
Yeah.
know, as a doctor,
Yeah.
that somebody comes in with a toothache could be presenting completely different in me than in Holly.
Absolutely.
You know,
100%.
so you have to treat every person as a person.
Exactly.
And whereas Google is great, but it's generalized.
That's
Exactly.
And what worked for person A isn't going to work for person B.
That's right.
And so
Yeah.
Thanks for saying that, Steve.
That's a
that
great
makes
po-
a
it-
huge difference.
Blanket statements are exactly like you learn really quick that cancer is insanely nuanced. It's
It-
very
You're
individualized,
right.
and it's even people with the same diagnosis as you
Yes,
it need to be treated as individuals.
that's right.
And yeah, and that's part of you have to learn that as the patient. That's also part of the frustration in helping people understand.
Yes.
Right.
And like you, like with your dad you were talking
Yeah.
about, and I've had and I still, to this day, have tons of people reach out about, well, I heard this for pancreatic cancer. And I'm like, I understand, but I don't necessarily, anytime you hear pancreatic cancer, it's playing to that 90 to 95%.
That's right.
It's not what I have.
That's
Right.
right.
And we didn't technically know, it wasn't until the next day that same gastroenterologist, so the day after I'm diagnosed, biopsy's done, he calls me the next afternoon and said, I have a glimmer of hope for you. That same pathology slide that showed it was malignant, that's just kind of a preliminary diagnosis of like, are these cancer cells? Yes, they are. Came from the pancreas, whatever. It was the next day that they were like, we sent that off to a pathology lab. Under further examination, you actually have neuroendocrine carcinoma. And that's when he explained to me, you have the rare one. And it can be kind of a good thing in the, sometimes it can be more treatable. Sometimes it can actually be treated through with surgery. So it's like, 24 hours later, and at this point, you know how it is. You're clinging to anything.
Oh,
I mean, if they can give you a remote silver lining, any ray of hope, you're just like, I'm taking that and running with it.
Oh, 100%.
So there was kind of a ray of hope, in the neuroendocrine carcinoma or neuroendocrine tumors. There's basically low grade, intermediate grade, and high grade.
Oh,
And
so
based
that's
on
not
how much
staged.
it is still staged, but the tumor itself is also staged in how much it's proliferating or how much the cells are actively dividing.
Oh, I didn't know
And
that.
I had
Okay.
I learned that I had high grade, which is rare and even more rare, and then also not the good one of those. So then I learned, then a lot of stuff, information I'm getting online and whatever, or that people are throwing at me are people who have lower grade. Same thing I've got, but lower grade.
Treated
And again,
differently.
totally treated different.
Totally different.
I have the exact same cancer that took Steve Jobs. That's probably the best way that I can explain it to people as far as like a public figure. He had pancreatic neuroendocrine carcinoma. He was diagnosed in 2003 or whatever and lived till 2011, but he had a lower grade. He had a lower grade than what I have. I have a high grade. So mine's actively
so
dividing
interesting.
faster and metastasizing. They also let me know at that time that there was 2 spots on the liver that he couldn't get over in biopsy, but they were going to set up for a needle biopsy. But by default, they were like, chances are, just looking at them on a slide and knowing what you have and how aggressive it is, those are probably neuroendocrine tumors as well. And a week later, a needle biopsy proved that they were. So then I'm staged, at that point as stage 4 because I metastasized to another.
But that's why they roadmap you.
Organ.
That's why the doctors work together and they put a roadmap together because
Yeah.
they look at your case,
Yes.
individual cases, what worked for these people that had a similar situation. They're not going to the internet and saying, "Oh, well, maybe this will work and maybe that'll work." No,
Right.
they're doing this systematically.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's so important to let your doctor do it, but be
Yeah.
your advocate.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to be your own advocate,
Oh man.
but
yeah.
trust what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't become a Google doctor overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
totally
true.
agree.
That
Yep.
is true.
Yeah.
All right, let's step back just
Yeah.
a second and let's talk about the 3 little ones.
Yeah.
So, who wants to tell me how did you tell them?
Well, I think we're pretty after all this they knew Rob was it was over Easter when you
Yeah.
were sick. So
When I was sick, jaundiced. Yeah.
and they knew he was sick, but we sat them down after finding out and explained, that he has cancer and somewhat of what it meant, but we were very very vague, and they just know he's sick and he's going to have lots of doctor appointments and he might not feel well every day.
Okay.
And they're so resilient too.
Oh,
though. So
I'm telling you.
But they have
Oh.
tender
The
little
kids-
hearts.
Yeah.
So you're doing a good job guarding their hearts, but still
Yeah.
giving
Yeah.
them the information.
and
That's
Giving them-
exactly it.
yes.
It's this fine balance of like, I want to inform them and let them know what's happening and also give them, I knew I was going to, I knew that I was going to start chemo. I knew I was going to lose my hair, all these things.
Yep.
And so I wanted to, preemptively, prep them for
Sure.
that. But at the same time, you're like, you don't want, the last thing you want is them laying awake at night scared,
Right.
that
100%.
because the information you gave them that you got them into frightened mode
Oh,
and
totally.
and change their
Yes.
lives. And
But
so,
they are so sweet
oh
that
gosh, I
just to
know.
have them around, like every
Yeah.
time I say, because I have, sisters that have little ones, and if I have that bad day, they make me feel so much better
Oh, it's
just to love
incredible.
them and just
Yeah.
the things that come out of their mouth because they're so innocent and they're just that that has got to help through everything. Like
Yeah.
they're still going to be kids. They're
Yeah.
still kids. They're
Yeah.
young and they have little hearts. And of course, you got to protect their hearts, but still be truthful with them.
Yeah.
And that's where it is a balance. But that is one thing that I just love, that you can't take it serious sometimes. You just have to, because
Yeah.
they are just super, they
Yeah.
have needs and
Yeah.
they need you. And that's, that's what keeps you going.
Yeah, and we've kept
Absolutely.
life as normal as possible.
Yeah,
They
course.
still
Yeah.
do sports or activities and
Yeah.
play dates and as much as you can, I guess.
I
with
know,
COVID.
I know,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
That's
But
true.
they're just, in some ways, I think if they were older, it dawned on me like the stress level would probably be a lot harder on them.
Oh my
Sure.
gosh, Megan, yes.
Yeah, I think
They're-
so. And they've been actually a great distraction, to be
That's
honest, because of what
exactly-
you said,
they're
like, because they're still kids.
Yeah.
They're
Like to
kids.
them, they still, I kind of take some comfort when they still have meltdowns about
Yeah.
simple, stupid
yeah.
things.
Oh, totally.
Because I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, they're still
There's
they're still a kid and they're still
Yes.
freaking out that I won't let them have this candy before dinner or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm still a dad to them and they can still
Yes.
treat me that way. And so there's comfort in that and just knowing like,
Absolutely.
okay, I think we're walking this tightrope and this balance. I think we're doing it
great.
okay.
You're
yeah,
doing a
and
great
we're
job.
doing
I
we're
think
trying,
that's amazing.
because how do you know how to do this stuff?
You
know what
don't.
I'm saying?
You
right.
don't.
I mean,
And
You
that was
don't.
so important to Ryan too.
Yeah.
Is he just wanted to be normal. He didn't want to be
Yeah.
treated any different.
That's right.
Right.
And
He
you
just
feel
wanted
normal
to-
with
I
your
remember
kids.
that about Ryan.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I've had that thought in this too, where it's like, I remember him being a great example of that, of just
Yes.
like you want.
He's like, why are we talking about cancer? We don't need to be
Yeah.
talking about cancer. Like
Yeah.
I'm a person. That does not identify me.
Right.
And I know that's how people
Totally.
feel about it.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about fishing or whatever it ends up being. But I
Yeah.
do have to say in what Megan was saying, because with Ryan, we were on the pediatric ward.
Oh yeah, because he was
he-
7. Was he 17
No, he
when
was
he was
18.
He was
diagnosed?
18,
But he would just
but
yeah.
they, at the large institutions, I don't want to speak for all of them,
Sure.
but at least at UCLA, depending on the cancer, even up to 25 years old, you can be
can still-
considered a
yeah.
pediatric.
And they
Gotcha.
said that
Because
was a
it's a-
super good thing.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
they want
yeah.
you to I don't know if I know how to explain that, but they said that, your body is still changing even though
Right.
you're 18.
Oh,
It
sure.
You're not
depends on
quite
the
that
cancer.
adult.
Right.
And the Ewing's type sarcoma that he had is typically in younger
Right.
kids.
pediatric
Right.
patients.
So,
Yeah.
So my point to that was basically that, we would walk through those
Yeah.
doors and see little ones, and Ryan would say, "I'm so glad that they're not going to remember this," or "I'm so
I
glad that they're
know.
they're little and they won't recall this." But my son,
Yeah.
that was a little bit different because, you have
He's-
to watch it and
yeah.
Mhm.
you have to endure it, and he knows exactly what's going on. So
Yeah, because
That's-
he's hovering. He's adult,
yeah,
maybe pediatric. Being treated in pediatrics, but he's an adult.
he
you know?
is.
And
He's an adult, and he
yeah.
had to sign the papers and everything.
Yeah.
So, there was questions that, every time they would have to ask, have you been out of the country? And I'm thinking to myself, oh, Ryan, don't joke now. Don't joke now, And,
Thank
This is
God
the
that
time.
there was no
Yeah.
COVID at the time.
I know,
Yeah, I know.
exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Exactly.
He'd
And
have
then
been in
Yeah, he
isolation
would
the
have
whole
been.
time.
yeah, the other question they would always have to ask too is if, his home life was good. And sometimes they would ask me to step out of the room. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, Lord, please, Ryan, don't joke about this one because, this is serious
Yeah, they're
business right
asking
now.
for
They're asking,
real reasons. Yeah.
We already
Yeah.
had social workers.
Yeah.
We didn't need them coming to try and take them
but
away.
he would
Right.
get so sick of the same questions.
Yeah.
Like, no, what do you think I did? I just,
Yeah.
I didn't go out of the country.
Yeah.
I was here last week
I
for
was
my
just, you
treatment.
just saw me. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
like don't be. Yeah, he'd get so irritated with it, but
Yeah.
they're doing their job too, and that's what we tried to
Absolutely.
explain them that
Yeah.
they're all doing a great job. So it is what it is. But so what exactly was your treatment and what was your regimen? Because I know, like we talked about, everything's different. So
Yeah.
how what did that look like? And also, I want you to add in like how COVID
Yeah.
affected things because
Sure. Yeah. So that happens, and then they're just like, we need to get going. They were like, get going right away, and so, we need to get going on treatment. So, I got that oncologist that he recommended. Stuff was sent over. Met with him the next week. This is where it's kind of weird because of COVID. Everything from here, I'm alone. Like I'm going, and I'm going into these appointments. I'm FaceTiming. I remember for that appointment specifically, you were in the car in the parking lot.
Oh,
I'm
gosh.
FaceTiming, with her, and the doctor's talking, and it was
Danielle
my
had to do the
first
same
time.
thing.
Yeah, it was my first time meeting the doctor, and he and I are both wearing masks. I mean, I worked with that oncologist in that office for, 6-7 months, and I've never seen their faces. I mean, it's just such a weird world right now, and the world was already weird, and then I get this diagnosis on top of it, which just compounded that. So the plan was, I was told right then, you need to get started on chemo. We need to put a Metaport in, get you on chemo, and get going now. And like ASAP. And so that's basically what happened. So diagnosed April 15th. I think I started chemo first week of May. So about 2 weeks later.
And was your treatment like every 2 weeks, every week?
It was 3 days of chemo every 3 weeks. So I would go in for 7 hours on day 1.
Gotcha.
And then it was 2 hours, about 2 to 3 hours on days 2 and 3. And then it was basically start the cycle over 3 weeks.
And that was considered a round.
And that was a round. And the plan was, it's a pretty harsh, they had warned me before. They're like, this is a pretty harsh chemo regimen, but you're young and healthy, and you're, we're typically doing this on older people. I think you'll be fine. And usually they go 6 rounds with that. Okay. And I went 8 rounds. Oh. And it was after that it was like, I was told, like you guys, it was basically early on, like, we need to get you to an institution, like you're either going north or south. And, and so I put out stuff to both Stanford and UCSF, because that quickly became apparent through information that you get, that for what I have, those were probably 2 of the top institutions that we have around here. Things kind of got rolling quicker probably with UCSF. And so they kind of became the quarterbacking group of my treatment. So they ended up, the scans and everything that I was having done in that process showed that it was just basically keeping everything stable. It wasn't shrinking the tumors that I had, but the tumors I had weren't growing, and I wasn't further metastasizing. So it was keeping this pancreatic and the 2 liver tumors kind of just at bay. So that's why they pushed it to 8 rounds. But they even at UCSF, they're like, we rarely go past 6. We really never go past 8. And I think the top oncologist for what I have, the department head was like, I've seen one person go 10 rounds. And that's just because it's harsh. And so it's after all of that they were like, everyone then was, coming out like, I can't believe what you've endured. Like, and you're just like, I only know what I know. Like, I don't know any different, and so, but I was surfing, I was doing whatever. I was honestly, through the whole process of that chemo, I felt, other than, the days of chemo itself and maybe 2 or 3 days after. It would kind of beat me down, but I never was like nauseous, sick. I did lose all my hair, body changes and weird things are happening that way and whatever. But overall, I was maintained. I never had any pain. Wow. Felt good.
Did you have to take the Neulasta shot?
Yes, the
I think they do a patch.
Yeah. It's a shot in the back of the arm, and it's funny, because I just remember. I think this came up in your podcast with Aaron, your son, but so I just watched that recently. But and I was like, oh man, I know what he's talking about with the bone pain. Yeah, so the long bone pain that would happen, because of that shot. Yeah, and
Ryan hated that.
Yeah, it was weird. I remember crouching down to help the kids with things, and it's funny because you don't feel it all going down, and then you try to get up, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I feel like my femur is gonna break. It was so bizarre, and I remember a couple times having to call Megan over and be like, hey, come lift me up, give me a hand.
Give me a hand.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. So
oh gosh.
So during all this, you got a special phone call or something, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that.
Yeah, totally.
Yes,
yeah.
I need to hear. Yeah, tell that story.
Okay,
it's a great story.
So early on, I had text. We have really close friends here that we love and that have just been incredibly supportive. And I text everybody early on and just said, hey, this is what is going on with me, and I just want you guys to be aware and everything. and like all of us, when you get that news, like you guys have been through,
Gosh, yes.
you're shock and awe, like you said, and also your thoughts are just like, what can I do? And the thing with cancer is like, you can't. I mean, it's terrible. It sucks. I mean, you can't do anything, and you want to just take it away, or you want to just be like, it's so bizarre compared to other things that you're dealing with in life, because a lot of other things you can step in and intervene and offer this and do that or whatever, and it can help remedy the situation.
Sure.
Cancer is just so weird. So all my friends were going through that, and one friend in particular just knows I love Jeopardy, and I'm a fan. I watch it every day, and I love Alex Trebek, and just it's just my thing. Like it's right up my alley. And Alex Trebek, as some people may know, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He had the more common type, the adenocarcinoma, and he had announced it about a year before I was diagnosed.
Yes.
So it was March of 2019, and he was going through treatment and stuff. So my buddy, Jared, his name, was like, I just was sitting there and I was like, I don't know what to do. But that thought occurred. And so he's like, I'm going to reach out to Alex Trebek. So he ended up emailing a producer of Jeopardy saying, hey, my buddy's a huge fan, young guy, just got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Is there, just wonder if Alex could give him a shout out or something. And just kind of, just that guy wrote back and he's like, hey, despite what you might think about Alex Trebek, he's actually has zero technology. He doesn't even have an email.
He doesn't have an email.
Yeah.
Oh my
so
gosh.
He's like, your best bet is to write a letter. So then my friend,
then
my friend was like, I love you, Rob, but I'm not going to sit down and write a letter. So he's like, so he did some homework and he saw where Alex Trebek's wife maintains a blog.
Oh.
Separate from being Alex Trebek's wife by any means, just something separate. So he ends up emailing her on that. And nothing of it, didn't think anything of it. And he told me that. And he was like, hey, I wrote Jean Trebek as her name and just told her about your situation. The crazy thing is this is, in COVID, and my friends were all, hey, I know we're not really supposed to get together, but let's get together and just, we'll keep distance and whatever. But this is a terrible time and we just need to see each other's faces.
Yes.
So, one of my buddies owns a restaurant in SLO. So we met there and we did socially distance and sat at our tables and whatever, but we just need to see each other.
Yeah,
and they just need to be like, let me know face to face that they're here for me. Well, literally my phone rings and right then and there in front of all my friends and my friend that had initiated this. And again, it came up as unknown number. And you guys probably have been through this where you answer every phone call because you're like, I'm getting phone calls from San Francisco.
I still do it today.
Yeah,
they want to lower my credit card rates. I'm like, really? Come on.
Like, dang it, I fell for it. I know. And so I'm like, hey, let me answer. So I answer it and I'm like, hey, this is, hello. And he's like, hey, I'm looking for Rob Chatterton. I said, this is he. And he goes, hey, my name is Alex Trebek. And I'm like, I was like, my first thought was like, who would who's
playing this?
I'll take 500 for
who is
500.
Exactly. So I put it on speakerphone really quick, and I'm like, guys, it's Trebek, and they're all like, what? And then he started talking again, and a couple of my buddies clued in, and he's got a distinct voice, and and so I take it off speakerphone because I don't want to miss anything, and he's like, I understand, your friend Jared reached out to my wife, and I understand that you've been diagnosed, and I just wanted to call and offer anything I could offer and just answer any questions you might have about pancreatic cancer.
Wow.
And so it was just awesome. And so I, he and I had about a 4 or 5 minute conversation. He was insanely gracious and just friendly. And I was blown away with how much, he had really read whatever information my friend gave him. Cause he said, at one point he was like, hey, Rob, you're young, you're 42 years old. You've got 3 little kids. Yeah. And he's like, you have the ability to fight this in a way that I don't have. He's like, I'm going to be 80 years old. I've had a great life. And you can fight this in a way that us older people just can't.
Yeah.
And then he's like, can I offer you some advice? And I was like, of course. And he was like, I would just say, take this one day at a time, literally live one day at a time.
Absolutely.
And I remember hearing that at the time, and it's a cliche phrase, but at some point in this process, it becomes like one of the most accurate, true.
And you don't know what it's like until you've lived in it.
Exactly.
And people that say live one day at a time.
Yeah.
they don't understand until you actually have to do that.
Yes.
Yes.
It's not a, it's a cliche phrase for a reason. I mean, because it is true. I mean, and it's the way you end up, it's the lifestyle you have to adopt.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he said, he said, live one day at a time. And he said, keep a positive attitude, which I'm like, check, I'm going to do that no matter what. And then he said, and then pray for some luck. And he's like, just pray for a little bit of luck,
Wow.
and that I learned to, again, in the time, I'm like, cause like we talked about, cancer doesn't care, doesn't know, it's doing its thing, which is taking over your body, trying to survive, even at the expense of your body.
Yep.
But it doesn't know and care about any of that other stuff. And so luck kind of becomes part of it too, where it's like, and I like what he said about pray for luck, because there is this element of turning it over to a higher power, but also like understanding that some people are going to have good outcomes and some people just aren't. And that's just the nature of the beast.
How cool from him.
Oh, totally.
From
it
him.
was awesome.
Like, you're somebody that you, like, totally encouraging. Like, I mean, just a neat, he didn't have to do that.
No.
He took his time.
That's what my thought was. And I asked, I said, how are you doing? And he's like, hey, I'm okay. And he's like, don't worry about me. And obviously, since we all know, last November he passed away, and he lived, a year and a half with it at 80 years old, which is phenomenal.
Tremendous. He didn't look 80.
No, never.
Ever.
When I found out that he was 80, I was like, what?
Yeah, I know. He's ageless. And but my thought was like, what an incredible person to just be.
Do that.
He could hunker down and just be like, I'm done.
Yeah.
He owed me nothing.
Yeah.
And he owes.
I thought that was really
so
a
too.
cool gesture. Just, he wanted to do something for someone else.
Totally.
And I thought that was really, really cool. And that we talk about it time and time again after all these podcasts we do. It is so important to have that support group.
Yeah.
And I know you, and I know that your support group, and I know that, it's strong. It's strong. You've got some amazing people surrounding you and rallying around you. And
definitely.
Yes, it is. It's amazing. So I encourage you just to keep doing what you're doing.
Keep up the fight.
And and there's always hope. There's always hope, and there's and I just love his community of people. Everybody I seem to come, I always text Rob, hey, I found a guy in that, Aaron's toe that had an ingrown toenail or whatever. He's like, oh yeah, he's such a great guy. I'm like, of course you know him. So anyway, it just made me laugh that this is, and it's one person after another. And that is just super, it's awesome to hear. But I hope you know that we're here for you too.
No,
we're always
absolutely.
we're always here, and I always try to check on you periodically, both of you,
you've
because
been amazing.
Yeah, it's important to me, and especially with Megan, because Megan, I've been in your boat, and that's the hard part, is that it's hard to watch and hard to see and walk through, and
but it's one day at a time.
It's one day at a time. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. So you kind of feel a little helpless, but you aren't. You're doing an amazing job. Any other last things you want to?
You're in our thoughts and our prayers.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Anything that we can do to help.
Also, I wanted to mention too, you do have updates with Carrying Bridge, don't you?
I do. That's true. And I'm so
You
bad.
haven't been doing it. Okay.
No, I
worries.
have. It's been about a month, and I need to update. So I
just wanted other people, if they wanted to keep updated on your story, that
absolutely they can.
go.
And I need to go up there and update, because I am back on chemo. It's a less harsh chemo. That's why I've got hair and stuff. But I'm on it every 2 weeks. I'm on a chemo that I take home for 48 hours. I'm actively getting radiation. Like, I got radiation yesterday. I'll get it today. It has spread. It's spread to my liver and other spots, and to my brain and my left eye. And so that's what they're radiating right now, is a muscle in my left eye. So unfortunately, it's doing its thing, which is being aggressive and trying to,
it's being cancer.
Yeah, it's being cancer. Exactly. But you know what, since the kind of recent information or news that we got, which wasn't great, and I started feeling pain and sick, and we're dealing with that, for the first time in this process. But it's is getting better. I'm better today than I was yesterday, which
There you
was
go.
better than the day before. So
Right.
so
One
any
day.
improvements, yeah. And then exactly in the last few weeks and months, I would say I've really adopted that. I'm literally just taking it one day
One
at a time.
day at a
I
time.
literally wake up and I feel for my port to make sure it sounds morbid, but I feel
No.
for my port and I make sure I'm alive because I'm
And
like,
there you go.
because I don't know what
Yeah.
death transitions gonna, who of us really knows, you know, and
right.
so, you know, I make sure I'm alive and I realize I am, and then I say, you know, what do I have to do today? I've got
That's right.
radiation at 3, you know, so now I'm gonna
That's
go,
right.
I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna hang out with Megan. I'm gonna play with the kids, you know, and
Absolutely. Those are the
Yeah.
most important things.
absolutely,
Those are the most important things.
Yep.
Your family, your yeah, absolutely. And one day at a time. We'll be praying for that too. And
yeah, thank
yeah, and there's just attitude is everything.
you. Yeah,
That's right.
absolutely.
That's
Attitude is everything. And I
So,
know that
absolutely.
sounds very cliche, but that was Ryan's thing, and that's
Yeah.
what got him through. I know that you've heard this before, but doctors would walk into his room and they'd say, "How you doing, Ryan?" He's like, "I'm living the dream." And
How he was living the dream, we still don't
We
understand.
still don't- and,
but,
you know-
but that's where he was mentally.
That's where he
Exactly.
was.
And that's so
That's-
inspiring.
It
It
is.
honestly is.
And that's why I tell you that, is just to
Yeah.
inspire you that
Thank you.
there is somebody out there that has it worse.
Absolutely.
And there is.
yeah.
I mean, there is somebody out there. I know that's so hard to think of. That's one reason why I believe that Ryan did 17. Well, he's the one that thought of the whole 17 strong, because he wanted other people to
Yeah.
make sure that they got what he didn't get.
Yeah.
So,
Which is it's
amazing
so
that an
thoughtful.
18-year-old
it's
could
like,
think about that and to
Yeah.
to move forward in that and know that he's helping others, and
Yeah.
yet that's what gets me through.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I am so thankful for you two.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
Thank you for
love
being here.
that
Thank
you
you
were
for having
here.
us.
Absolutely.
And I want to say, I really am I just want to say how thankful we are, and I am, you know, just for you guys. I mean, you came and brought, Holly brought me a 17 strong. The day before I was going into chemo, Holly brought me a chemo care package, and I remember just, you know, I knew. Gosh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's quite all right.
Danielle went back on chemo the same week, or I think 1 week before.
Yep.
I did, and I knew you were, you know, I knew you were going through a lot, and just to have that, just to have you take the time and think of me and put together something like that was just, it's obviously very touching to me, and I just appreciate that, and thank you.
Oh gosh. Well,
And
you
this-
mean a lot to me, Rob.
Yeah,
and
I
I
know.
know that we had some great conversations, but I think that you know that how much you
Absolutely.
mean to me.
Yeah.
And you supported us through the whole Ryan situation. You made sure that you were there. So
Yeah.
that means a lot. It was not unnoticed. It was
Well, I'm glad. I hope you know that. And I'm sorry if, you know, we were talking earlier and I was like, you know, I've always been struggled with knowing what to say to people and when they're going through things that you just haven't been through, you know, and sometimes by default that puts me in a place of just, well, don't say anything at all, because it's better to say nothing than the wrong thing. And I hope I was there for you guys. You know?
You were.
But I've sensed, and you've been incredible that way. And to any listeners out there, Holly and I were talking earlier about this. It's just that I don't know if there's a wrong thing you can, just knowing. Even I've had people text and say, I don't know what to say, but
and that's okay.
I love you.
That's
you know?
okay.
Yeah.
That's
and
Love is the
exactly-
best four-letter word
That's
there
right.
is.
Exactly. And
That's
you're just
right.
like, you know what? Like, and since, you know, being diagnosed almost a year ago, I've had friends go through other incidents and whatever. And my thing is just like, don't hesitate. Text them,
Please,
call,
yes.
whatever.
Right then.
Exactly.
Right then.
Don't sit on it. Don't, you know, have
Yep.
paralysis by analysis, trying to think of the perfect thing to say. Just
right.
reach out.
That's right.
And I can guarantee you, from that person's point of view, they just love
That's
knowing
right.
that you're thinking of them.
That's it.
right.
That's it. 'Cause
Yeah,
that's
that's
all.
right.
It's that's
Uh-huh.
what it's.
Let somebody
at the
know you're
end of the
thinking
day,
of them
Yeah.
and that you care.
Exactly.
that I care. That's
Mhm.
exactly right. And I can't thank you enough.
Yeah. Thank you
Can't
guys.
thank you.
We
to
love you guys.
everyone
Love
that's
you
reached
too.
out to us.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
been amazing.
Amazing.
Just the community,
Absolutely.
the friends,
Yeah.
the
The
family.
community that we live in is amazing.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, when you are I can't say enough.
I
cannot
know.
say enough. So you guys came back here. You're meant to be here.
Absolutely.
We don't understand, but we're walking through it.
Right.
And we know that we're loved here. So
With that,
Yeah.
we're going to wrap up another 17 Strong podcast, and we thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
And for all of our listeners, thank you. We know that this was a long one, but it was an important one. So, and remember, attitude is everything.
You've been listening to 17 Strong. Victories don't come by accident. To be part of the show, make a donation, or request more information, go to 17strong.org. That's SEVENTEEN strong.org.